Everyone is now talking about this case, the case of Lindsay Clancy, claiming that she was mentally ill when she killed her 3 children. But people aren't talking about her. They're talking about Patrick. A lot of people believing that Patrick did it. Well, there was huge evidence today which disproves that theory. I'm Vinnie Politan. Let's investigate. This case, this trial is obviously blowing up everywhere. I feel it myself. I'm getting text messages from people who never discuss the true crime stories that I'm talking about day in and day out. In the dugout of my baseball game, my adult baseball game over the weekend, the guys were asking me about this case. They never talk to me about the stories or cases that I'm covering. And what everyone is saying, and the conversation is, right, Vinnie, the husband did it, right? The husband did it. And how do I respond to that? Like, how do I, first of all, it can't be answered between innings in the dugout, right? So I think it's a little bit of a longer conversation. And it's sort of an ongoing conversation that we're having here on Vinnie Politan Investigates. One answer I do have, though, is like, the husband did it, right? And I would say, well, not according to her attorney. Like, Lindsay Clancy's attorney doesn't believe that Patrick did it, and his job is to defend her. And if there was evidence pointing at someone else, that's obviously where he would point the jury. But that's not happening. He's conceding it, right? The case is about her mental state. Yes, she did it, but was she or was she not under the influence of this mental illness and this over-medication and everything else associated with it? So that's what the trial is about, and that's what the arguments and the evidence in the trial are all about. But the conversation outside of the courtroom is all about Patrick. So obviously, here we'll continue to address that issue. So today, familiar face on the stand from the Karen Reed trial, the cell phone expert, Ian Whiffen, who testified in her trial, someone who extracts the information from the cell phone and tries to piece together what happened, did that with Lindsay Clancy's cell phone. And one of the conclusions, and I think this is so important to the people who believe that Patrick Clancy did it, is that that cell phone evidence that he has demonstrates that Lindsay was walking when Patrick was out of the house. One more time. Lindsay, who's in a wheelchair now, right? After exiting that second floor bedroom, was walking when Patrick was out of the house. So let's break this down, because I think this is important, and I think this is the type of evidence that's coming out now that we need to explore. So let's begin and go back and listen to Patrick Clancy kind of talk about his timeline on the day that his children were murdered or killed, depending upon what the jury says here, right? The day the children are gone. What is he doing? Where is he going? Who is he texting? Back and forth, trying to piece together the most important time, which is really between 5 and 6 o'clock that night on the 24th. So let's take a listen to Patrick Clancy.
As you're getting ready to leave the house to head out to get the takeout, did Lindsay say anything to you?
Nothing specific that I can recall, other than maybe goodbye.
Do you recall something about discussing something about CVS with her?
Yeah.
Okay. And what did she say about CVS?
She wanted me to pick up some stool softener for Cora.
And she hadn't mentioned that earlier in the text, correct?
Yeah, I don't think so.
So as you're leaving, she asked you to make a second or another stop while you're out. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in response to that request, did you ask her to do something?
I don't remember. Yeah, I told her to text it to me, which she did.
I'm sorry. So that refreshed your memory and
Yep.
asked her to text it to you?
Yep.
And did she do so?
She did.
And was that at approximately 5:15 p.m. that she texted PDLX?
Sounds correct.
So your two stops then that night were going to be CVS and the 3V restaurant, correct?
Yes.
Where did you go first?
CVS.
So it's a pretty direct route from your house to CVS?
Yeah.
And that's the CVS you went to that night?
Yes.
About how long did it take you to get there?
3 minutes.
I'm going to ask you to look at the video here. Is that you entering the store?
Yeah.
Okay. And that section you head to on the right, is that the pediatric medication section?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can hold it there for 1 second. As you look at this video, if you look in the bottom corner, bottom left-hand corner, there's a timestamp there. Now, not all timestamps are accurate, right? This timestamp is what, 5:33, I believe, if I can see it. But it's clearly, okay, so there's a timestamp of when he's at CVS. In putting together a timeline, timestamps are important. Let's continue.
And while you're in that section, looking for the medication, do you do something?
I called Lindsay
And why did you call Lindsay?
because what we were looking for wasn't there. The shelves were pretty empty. It was still during COVID.
I'm sorry, what?
It was during COVID, so
Okay, so, and was that call at about approximately 5:33 p.m.?
yeah.
Okay. And then, did she answer the call?
Yes.
She answered when you called her?
Actually, I think she didn't at first. She called back.
Okay. And did you receive a call back from her about a minute later at 5:34 p.m.?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And can you describe that phone call for us?
It was very brief. I just said, I think there was a generic brand, and I said, is this one okay? And she said, yeah, that's fine.
And what was her demeanor during the call?
She was pretty quiet. It sounded like she was busy. I remember hanging up thinking she's probably in the middle of giving baths or something like that.
So it sounded to you like she was in the middle of something?
Yeah.
Were you able to understand her when she spoke to you?
Yeah.
And did she seem to understand what you were saying?
Yes.
And she didn't seem to have any trouble recalling why you were at CVS or what you were looking for?
That's correct.
Okay. Two important things. The timing and what's happening. He's at CVS. He's making a phone call to her. People who are pointing the finger at Patrick Clancy say, no, those phone calls never happened because he had already taken care of Lindsay and the kids. Lindsay's already outside on the ground, paralyzed. The calls were never made. He was calling from the Apple Watch to make it look like he was calling Lindsay. Okay? That's what people are saying. Let's take a listen now to Massachusetts State Police, Andrew Ciaccio, who's going to talk here about the timing, right? You want to verify the time that he's at CVS. Let's watch.
Why were you asked to go to the CVS in Kingston?
To obtain surveillance video.
Did you notice any discrepancies in the timestamps?
I did not.
And after viewing the video surveillance there at CVS, were you able to see Patrick Clancy in the store at CVS?
Yes.
And fair to say you were able to track that he arrived at 17:32:32 and exited the store at 17:37:08?
Yes.
Okay. Verify the timestamp. Verify the video. All of that is evidence in the case. Patrick Clancy is at the CVS at that time. Patrick Clancy says he speaks with Lindsay Clancy. Is that even possible? Well, what does Lindsay Clancy's phone say? What evidence do we have from her phone that day? Ian Whiffen, the big witness today from Cellbrite expert, testified about what he extracted from Lindsay Clancy's phone. Take a listen.
And then did you create a timeline combining all the data that we've talked about into one timeline?
I did, yes.
I'm going to the last page of your report, page 43. Is this the last page of the timeline?
It is, yes.
And in that page, can you explain what we're seeing here?
Yes, so the very first column is the timestamp. The next few columns, which show typically coloured, is related to the activity, which will become a little bit clearer in a moment. The row or the column in the centre explains what the record is. So if, for example, we look at the 17-13-16 record, we can see a U, which means the device was unlocked in pink. That unlock event lasted until 17-15-12. So hence that entire column is in pink and shows the relevant lock event.
So here we have 513 device unlock.
Yes.
515 device lock, and there's this column connecting them, correct?
Correct. And then any activity that happened during that unlock time is then shown within the rows between. So again, we see Safari open at 17-13-16. Safari was closed at 17-14-47. Messaging was opened at 17-14-47. While messages were open, there was an outgoing message sent for PDLX. Then messaging was closed. Messaging was opened again, and messaging was closed prior to the device locking. So everything in the coloured columns tries to show all of the events that happened at the same time or during that parent event.
And what we have here at 5:33 p.m., we have the flight climb started, is that correct?
Correct.
And flight climb ended at 5:38, so
Yes.
that line again connecting them?
Correct. So 2 flight climbs occurred during that time period.
And in between when the flight climb started and the flight climb ended, you have the 2 calls, the incoming call that was missed from Patrick and then the outgoing call to Patrick, correct?
Correct.
So the first flight climbed had already been started. Someone had already started climbing up a flight of stairs when that first unanswered call happened, correct?
So flight climb started is how it's listed within the database and within the software. But it actually, the flight climb time is when the flight climb has been recognized by the device as the device has already climbed up those stairs. So even though it says flight climb started, that's technically the time that the flight climb or the first flight climb had ended.
So where it says 5:33:34 flight climb started, that actually indicates the person has gone up that first flight of stairs already.
Yes, that indicates the phone has now realized I'm 3 meters higher than I was the last time I checked. Therefore, a flight climb has already been completed at that point.
And then the calls happen, and then the phone realizes at 5:38 that another flight has been climbed.
Correct.
Okay. Lindsay Clancy's phone is climbing stairs. Her phone is climbing stairs. 2 flights, kind of like from the basement up to the second bedroom, all of which is consistent with the prosecution theory, all of which is consistent with what they've been saying. Patrick Clancy said he called Lindsay Clancy, did not answer, then got a call back. That information also consistent with what is found on Lindsay Clancy's phone. The movement, the calling. Lindsay Clancy, from this evidence, is walking up the stairs when Patrick Clancy calls her. We know where he is. We know where her phone is, and we know her phone is moving. Doesn't seem like Lindsay Clancy is paralyzed in the backyard after being tossed out the window. This does not fit into what I have been hearing from the people who have a theory that Patrick Clancy did it. This does not fit that theory. Not even close. What does this fits what the prosecution has been demonstrating to this jury from the beginning of the case. This fits and is consistent with what Patrick Clancy testified to. It makes sense to me. I'm wondering, there's going to be a reaction because I know some people still will not believe it, but I'm curious as to how you would explain the movement of Lindsay Clancy's phone. Like all those pieces are fitting together. Like there's no, oh, well, how did that? No, there's none of that. He called her. The phone is moving. It stops. They make a connection. Hang up. Then it continues. It's almost like you can piece together what the prosecution timeline is going to be here. He called her right after she killed the 3 kids in the basement and was on her way up to the bedroom to throw herself out the window. That's what prosecutors will argue. So big moment inside the courtroom. There were other big moments today, and this was very emotional and difficult. First, I want to put up on the screen something else that's going on. There's a GoFundMe right now for Lindsay's mom and dad, the Musgrove family. It's called the Musgrove Family Fund. They want to raise $2 million. They've raised over $800,000. And I'll read part of what this is about. In January of 2023, Lindsay Clancy was accused of killing her 3 young children in their Duxbury, Massachusetts home. She's now on trial. The Musgrove Family Fund is for the 2 people who have remained at her side through every step of what followed. Her parents, Mike and Paula Musgrove. It asks donors to recognize the extraordinary financial burden her parents have carried simply by continuing to be present. The purpose of this fund is to help Mike and Paula rebuild the financial stability they have sacrificed over these past 3 years. Contributions will help cover the accumulated costs of travel, lodging, living expenses, and other family expenses arising from their continued support of Lindsay throughout her case. The fund was established with their knowledge and consent, and Lindsay's attorney, Kevin Reddington, is aware of it. The Musgroves will control the funds and determine how they are used for the purposes described above. So people who are feeling sorry for Lindsay Clancy and for her parents have been raising money, and it will go to Lindsay's parents, and they will control what will happen with it. Meanwhile, Paula Musgrove on the witness stand today, really in a tough spot, difficult spot for her. Let's not forget that she was the grandmother of these 3 children as well. So let's take a listen to part of her testimony.
Tell the jury how you interacted and felt about your grandchildren.
I loved my grandchildren with all my heart. You never know what it's like to love a grandchild until you become a grandmother. And it was the most beautiful thing. I love them with all my heart.
Now, did you have occasion to see how Lindsay reacted and treated her kids as a mother?
Yes.
And granted that you're her mother, so you're obviously biased. Tell the jury what observations you made of Lindsay as a mother through the years after Cora was born, and then Dawson, and then, of course, baby Callan.
Lindsay was a very loving mother. She was dedicated to her children. She was a fun mother. She was always doing things for her kids. She always wanted to be a mother, have many children, and I felt it was the best thing that ever happened to her. And she would do anything for her children. She was just a loving mother.
Now, in 2022, Callan was born. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you stay in touch with Lindsay and Pat during that period of time, the spring into the summer of 2022?
Yes.
And how often would you see them or talk to them, or what would you do? You go to cookouts, or would you have parties, or how would you socialize?
Myself and my husband would travel from Connecticut to Duxbury at least 2 or 3 times a month, as well as them coming to Connecticut to visit us.
And would you agree that in the summer, for example, of 2022, that Lindsay and Pat were active with the kids and were pretty happy?
Very happy, yes.
Did you observe in the summer of 22 any changes at that point in her personality and the way she was acting with her friends in society?
In the summer, no.
And they were having a fairly good summer.
Yes.
Did you notice at some point a change in Lindsay's demeanor?
Yes.
Tell the jury when that was.
It was sometime probably around the second week of October.
What happened that you noticed?
I noticed that she had become very anxious. She told me she was anxious about going back to work because Callan was having trouble taking a bottle and she didn't feel right about leaving him.
And as a result of that, did she tell you that she was going to put off going back to work?
Yes, she told me she was applying for an extension.
Now, did you know at that point that she was going through any issues involving depression or anxiety or having any suicidal ideation or anything like that?
At that point, no.
At that point, things changed, though, and the testimony of Lindsay's mom, crucial for this jury. Lindsay Clancy's mother was there, right? Was spending time, was interacting with her daughter. So she got to see firsthand some of the differences in Lindsay's behavior. Let's go back in and listen to more of her crucial testimony.
At what point, if any, did you become aware that your daughter was suffering from this symptomology?
In late October.
And how did that come about?
She sent me a text message.
And do you recall when that was?
Yes, that was on October 20th.
So I'm going to approach you with this board and ask if this is a copy of the text that you're referring to.
Yes, it is.
Would you read that for the jury?
Mom, will you please come up and stay with me for a bit? I'm really sick. Something is wrong. I had horrible insomnia all night, and I just don't know how I'm going to get through the day. I started taking the medicine my doctor prescribed for anxiety, and I think it's made things worse. It's just really scary, and I don't want to be alone.
You want to write off this?
Objection. It's already in evidence.
What do we mark it for identification? Is that text within the?
I'd rather have it in the board.
Well, I know you would, but we already have the.
They want a little painting. Can I just have the board like?
No, we're going to mark that for identification. The text that is been referred and read to is within Exhibit 276, which was just offered.
I'm sorry, which is what?
I think it was within Exhibit 276, which was within that thread that you just offered.
Okay, so I will then, that would be 276,
Yeah.
so that will be over here. As a result of receiving that text, did you then come up to?
Hold on a second.
Exhibit W for identification.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So as a result of that, did you come up to Duxbury?
Yes, same day.
And tell us about that. What happened that day at the end of October?
Lindsay had been, I believe she went to the emergency room that day, and she had come home. She was feeling a bit better. She told me that she couldn't sleep. She was very anxious, and she was afraid.
And how long did you stay with her?
At that point?
Yes.
I believe at that point I stayed for about a week.
And was your husband with you?
He came later. He didn't come directly with me then because he was still working, so he came later.
I never asked, what did you do for work?
I worked for Weight Watchers.
And you're retired?
Yes.
How about your husband? Is he working now?
He recently retired.
And what was the nature of his work?
He was in photography.
What kind of photography?
School picture photography.
For yearbooks and things like that?
Yeah, and school pictures, and you had your kids' pictures taken.
And he just recently retired?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that during the month of October into November, into the holidays in December, that you and your husband would stay with Lindsay and the kids?
Yes. I stayed more than my husband because he needed to go back home to work.
Sure. While you were staying with Lindsay, can you tell us your opinion as to her condition? Was it decompensating? Was she getting better as time went on through November and December into the holidays?
Through November into December, it was not getting better into the holidays.
And you knew she was on medication at that point?
Yes.
You knew she was seeing doctors at that point?
Yes.
So tell us, is there an incident that came to your mind that you recall that occurred on one evening that indicated to you how seriously she was suffering?
There were many. One particular evening that was disturbing to me was that, she was afraid to be alone, and she actually asked if she could sleep with me.
When was that?
That was late November, early December.
And did she indeed sleep with you on that occasion?
She did.
Continuing on through the holidays, did you guys get together for the holidays, Christmas or Thanksgiving, if you recall?
Yes, I was down there probably most of December through Christmas Eve, and then I left on Christmas Eve to come home to see my other daughter and her family, and then Lindsay actually came to my house later the day on Christmas Day.
Was she with Pat?
Yes.
Okay, and the kids?
Yes.
During that period of time, did you make further observation as time went into January? Oh, back it up. At some point, she voluntarily went into McLean Hospital?
Yes.
You knew that?
Yes.
How did you know that?
I was there.
What do you mean you were there?
I was at Lindsay's house staying with them.
You take care of the kids?
Yes.
And it's fair to say that Pat's parents, mom and dad, also stepped up, taking care of the kids, helping out during this period of time?
They were there, I guess, when we weren't there. I didn't really see them, but...
Right, because you guys would be different time frames.
Right.
But you all were pulling together as a family, is that
Right.
correct? January, leading up to January 24th, do you recall, and can you tell the jurors what, if any, observations you made of Lindsay and her condition?
Lindsay had lost a lot of weight. She had become, during this whole time, paranoid about different things that really she shouldn't have, really weren't logical to become paranoid about. She would mention that this wasn't her mind. She would say to me, this isn't me. I've never been like this before. And I would agree because she wasn't. She was attempting to go through the motions of her day, take care of the kids as best she could. She didn't want to drive. So at times when Pat didn't go pick the kids up at school, I would drive Lindsay to pick the kids up at school because she was afraid to drive.
Did she express to you concern that in this time frame that people at the school, teachers and other people would be able to know what she was thinking and would think that she wasn't a good mother because she was sick?
Yes, she said the school knows something's going on because I'm not driving my car. They see that I'm not driving my car to pick the kids up.
Do you recall the end of January that she made a statement to you about the medication, in her opinion, what it was doing to her mind?
Yes.
What did she say?
She said that she couldn't remember anything. The medication was pretty much just destroying her mind, and it wasn't her. She said, this isn't me. I just want to feel better and enjoy my kids again.
Now, I know that this is difficult. In December of 2022, do you recall the time that you were in the kitchen with Lindsay and Patrick and she made a statement about her state of mind to her husband, Pat, and you were there?
Yes.
I know it's difficult. Just tell us what you remember.
I remember her being very nervous. I remember her saying, I just have to tell you guys something. And then she told us.
What did she tell you?
She told us that she had thoughts of harming the children.
She's talking about it. clearly suffering from mental illness, but talking about it to the people closest to her. Yet here we are. Lindsay Clancy's mother wasn't the only family member who came to speak with her and noticed things and was having sort of an ongoing conversation during the time leading up to the killing of the 3 children. Lindsay's sister was also a part of her life, someone who was close to her, and she took the stand as well. Let's take a look at her testimony.
I will say on Thanksgiving in particular is when the first time I saw her in person after quite some time. I had known she had not been doing well via text message communication that we had. I think on Thanksgiving, she, her mood did not look good, her energy, she didn't seem very energized. It definitely seemed off from how I've seen her in the past.
And were you aware that that carried through from November into December, around the holiday season, if you had stayed in touch with her?
Yes.
And can you tell us what you observed about her around the holiday season as it related to her, from your observations and your texting and your communications with Lindsay? How did she appear to you at that point?
The beginning of December, it seemed like she very much decompensated. I do remember her saying at one point at the beginning of December, something along the lines of, I'm in a really tough spot. And knowing what she had shared with me previously about how her mental health had been struggling, I had this gut feeling that something was off and that she was really struggling, and I asked her if she was safe.
What did she say?
She said yes at that point.
And you knew her husband, Pat?
Yes.
And you knew the kids?
Yes.
Obviously. Do you recall around Christmas itself, and perhaps a little bit thereafter, that you spoke with her and that she indicated, basically, I'm not doing okay?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what you observed about her demeanor or her symptomology when you said she was decompensating around that time? What were they symptoms in your mind of?
Based on communication with Lindsay, and I started communicating with Pat directly at that time, she was reporting her mood was worsening, as she described as depression. She was having more suicidal thoughts. Insomnia continued to be an issue. She was really not feeling like herself.
And did you know that during that period of time where she was telling you about the suicidal thoughts and the issue of depression, that she was seeing doctors?
Yes.
And what did she tell you about seeing the doctors, and if she was on any medication, and if so, what effect did they have on her?
So the first thing she said about the doctors was back in October when she said that she saw a doctor for Zoloft and had a very awful reaction to that Zoloft.
Would that be Dr. Tufts?
I don't believe she shared that specific with me.
Share the name? Okay.
No. And then I think throughout our communication over the couple months of October to December, she did share with me that she was going to doctors, she was getting different prescriptions, kind of all the things that they were trying and different treatments they were looking at.
And do you recall when you were talking with her about her symptoms towards the end of December that she had, in your words, decompensated significantly and stated to you that she felt nothing and that she was scared, things of that nature?
Yes.
What else did she tell you, if you recall?
At the end of December, so I think it was more along the same of, that she is really not feeling well. Her mood is down. She's feeling numb. She's feeling hopeless. I believe at the very end of the month, she told me she had had suicidal ideation every day for a month.
Do you recall towards the end of the month around New Year's that she voluntarily admitted herself somewhere?
Yes.
Do you know where she admitted herself?
McLean Hospital.
And while she was at McLean Hospital, ultimately, do you know how she got out of McLean Hospital?
It was my understanding that she was weaning off of some medication that she was on, and then was eventually discharged 5 days later.
Now, did you see her or talk to her after she left McLean Hospital trying to wean herself off of whatever medication it was? Because you don't know what the medication was, right?
I believe it was Seroquel.
Seroquel.
Yep.
Did she tell you anything to the effect that when she got out of the hospital that she felt as though this was a step in the right direction? Did she seem as though she was trying to be positive about her life?
Yes.
And tell us about that, because up until this point you had observed her decompensating and having these symptoms and suicidal ideation and depression and feeling nothing and scary. When she got out of McLean, what did she appear to you and what did she say to you?
I believe she said she felt that that was a good plan and that she was starting to feel better.
So was your sister, in your opinion, granted she's your sister and you're biased, obviously, but was she a complainer?
No.
And obviously she didn't share with you in detail her doctors and medicines and things of that nature. Is that fair?
No.
But you were aware of the struggles and the hurt that she was going through?
Yes.
And then through the month of January, did you have occasion to see her, or were you, because you still live in different states?
Yes. Yes, I did have an occasion to see her in January.
When?
We went to Cora's birthday party.
And that was at the trampoline park?
Yes.
How did she appear at that?
I think she looked like she was going through the motions of putting together a birthday party for her daughter, but she looked tired. She looked like she was still struggling.
So there was a difference in your observation of what you had known your sister to have as a personality?
Yes.
And then, of course, the horrible day, were you aware, or did somebody call you and tell you that the children had been killed?
Yes.
One of them still survived and ultimately passed?
Yes.
And do you recall who told you that?
Yes.
Who was that?
My mother.
And as a result of getting the call from your mother, what did you do?
I jumped in the car, packed a bag, and I sped up to South Shore Hospital, which is where I was told she was.
This whole family, wow, what they have been through. But again, the theme here is very clear. Lindsay was struggling, but the question is to what degree? So this is what makes this case so difficult for prosecutors, is that, like, it's obvious to everyone that Lindsay Clancy is suffering from mental illness, but what impact is the mental illness having on the decisions that she made on the 24th of January when she took the lives of her 3 children? So any testimony concerning what she was doing, how she was functioning, and to what level this mental illness was impacting her life and what people were noticing about it becomes very, very relevant. So this part of the testimony of Lindsay Clancy's sister is extremely important because it's the cross-examination. As prosecutors are still, they have to concede because it's the truth, right? She's suffering from mental illness. But how bad was it? Let's watch.
And do you recall speaking to the police on January 25th, just a day after this all happened back in 2023?
Yes.
And do you recall telling them that you saw Lindsay 2 weeks prior to the 24th, roughly around the birthday party time, and that she seemed okay?
Yes.
Do you recall telling the police that you spoke to her in phone calls many times after she was discharged to McLean, and that her tone of voice in those calls seemed better?
I did not speak to her on the phone. Most of our communication was via text.
Okay, so you don't recall saying that to the police, that the tone of Lindsay's voice in our phone conversations was better the last couple weeks since she had been released from the hospital?
I believe when I said that, I meant her tone via her text messages.
And so her tone in her text messages was better?
A bit.
And do you recall telling police that you spoke to Lindsay on Thursday, January 19th, 2023, and she seemed okay?
Yes.
And that was a phone call, correct?
That was text message.
Text message, okay.
Yes.
So when you were saying spoke to the police, you were referring to text messages?
Correct.
And so in that text message, she seemed fine?
She seemed okay.
So she had just been released from McLean Hospital at the beginning of January, and all of your communications after the birthday party were text messages, is that correct?
I think the date's wrong.
I believe so, yes.
And just so we make sure we have the date correct, after she was discharged from McLean in January of 2023, up until January 24th, 2023, all of your communications were via text.
Yes.
Did you visit her at her home that month?
No.
You didn't reach out or call her at all, correct?
I reached out and called, yes. I did not visit her at her home, no.
When you called, did she respond? Did she answer the phone?
I'm sorry, let me backtrack. I can't recall whether I made a phone call. I can recall the majority of our communication between January 1st and January 24th was via text message.
Okay, so there could have been some phone calls.
I cannot recall any phone calls.
You are a licensed social worker, correct?
Correct.
And you're a mandated reporter, correct?
Yes.
And at any point in time between January 1st, 2023 and January 24th, 2023, did you have enough concern about the safety of the kids or the safety of your sister to file a report as a mandated reporter?
No.
All right, a couple things from her testimony. First, in distinguishing text message versus phone call, personally, I get the two jumbled in my mind, but prosecutors base their case upon the interviews of witnesses and the statements that they give. So she previously talked about phone calls, very specific, and now it's text messages. Is she telling the truth? Likely telling the truth, not being deceptive on purpose, but for a prosecutor, you're trying to get to the truth and trying to figure things out, and you base it upon the investigation that's done. And here you have someone who now is sort of changing the parameters of it, but I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal one way or the other. I think at the end that was significant, that she didn't observe anything that made her think that children were in danger. And I think that's important for prosecutors in this case in trying to diminish the level of this mental illness that she was actually suffering from to attempt to win this case. I want to play for you one more thing. This was a moment where Margaret Hamp is testifying. This is someone who worked with Lindsay Clancy as a nurse in labor and delivery and recalling an incident. Listen really closely, because this is like one of those moments where you go, oh. Let's watch.
Your experience dealing with patients that have birthed a child, as the district attorney asked, and are on Zoloft and expressing issues of being a parent. Were you aware of any incidents where Lindsay was with you and a woman did in fact express concern that she wanted to hurt herself or her child?
There was a particular patient that Lindsay was on staff when this patient arrived. It was a patient that arrived to the unit that had plans to harm herself while she was pregnant. And we had a conversation. Lindsay was brand new. It was the summer that she had just started. And we had a conversation about mental health in pregnancy and postpartum. And I asked her if she had ever heard of the Andrea Yates case, and she hadn't. And I explained that to her, and she cried. And she said, how could a mother hurt her children?
Thank you. All set.
Thank you.
Almost.
That's a moment. There are a lot of unusual dynamics in this trial. One of which is that the child killer, because she admitted that she did it, is getting support from the victims. And what I mean is the people, the family members who have survived all this are considered victims. And in this case, Lindsay Clancy is getting support from them. And it begins with her now former husband, Patrick, who has provided forgiveness. Like right in the beginning of all of this, there was a level of forgiveness from him, asking the public to forgive her, and also showing his support, not believing that she should be held criminally responsible. He's also joined her in a civil suit against the people he believes are responsible, the people who are prescribing the medications and not coming up with the right diagnosis or treatment for her mental illness. But This is, again, unusual, right? A father's 3 children are killed, and he is providing support and forgiveness to the person who did it. Now, Lindsay's mother, absolutely heartbroken in all of this, but also there to support her daughter. Let's not forget that she lost 3 grandchildren. And that's a tough loss. As a grandparent, burying grandchildren doesn't get much worse than that. But despite that, she too, providing support to her daughter, does not believe she should be sent to prison for what she did to her grandchildren. Also, in all this is Patrick's mom, who is also a grandmother and the former mother-in-law of Lindsay Clancy. She, too, was there during this time, an important witness in this case, but also someone who clearly does not believe that Lindsay should be criminally prosecuted for what happened to her grandchildren, her son's 3 children. So all these victims supporting the child killer, absolutely unusual, almost unprecedented inside of a courtroom. So let's take you in now and take a look at the direct examination of Susan Clancy. This is Patrick's mom.
Yeah, Lindsay married my son Patrick, and we had a very good relationship.
And did you have occasion to go to their home
Yes.
in Weymouth?
Yes, I did.
And then in Duxbury as well?
Correct.
And obviously, you and your husband were the grandparents of the 3 little kids?
Yes.
And how was your relationship with the babies?
Beautiful.
And tell us how frequently, to your memory, you were able to visit with your son, Lindsay, and of course your grandchildren.
At least a couple times a month we would see them.
At some point, by the way, what do you do for work? I'm sorry, an RN?
An RN.
And what type of any focus?
I worked in the labor and delivery room for about 38 years.
38 years in labor and delivery?
Correct.
Helping women that were having babies. And
correct.
Obviously you kept up with the studies and continuing education and things?
Yes, I did.
To that extent, in your capacity as an RN with 38, well back then it would have been 35 years of experience, I think.
Yes.
Fair to say that you, as I said, you would keep up with all of recent developments in postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression, all of that?
Somewhat, but I mainly just was in the delivery room itself.
So were you aware of the various physicians that were in the forefront, if you will, of postpartum studies as it relates to medicine?
Yes.
And would one of the people that you were interested in be a person by the name of Dr. Meg Spinelli?
Yes.
And can you tell us who Meg Spinelli is?
I don't really know Meg Spinelli well. We've spoken a couple of times. I believe she specializes in postpartum mental health.
And have you met with her before?
Not in person.
Okay. Did you at some point ask Dr. Spinelli to help out at your hospital, and I guess they call it a rounds lecture?
I asked her to bring on her experience and education in that area and share it with my colleagues.
Did she do that?
She did.
And as time went by, dealing with your job, your family, your son, daughter-in-law, grandchildren, did you notice in 2022, after Callan was born, any change in the personality, if you will, of Lindsay?
Several months after that, I did.
Would that be sometime in the fall?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors, being as close as you were with the family, well, let me back up. As a mother-in-law, did you have any observation to observe Lindsay with her kids?
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors about how you saw her acting with her children as a mother?
She was very nurturing, very loving. She was a wonderful mother. Wonderful.
Did you ever see her treat her middle son Dawson bad because you didn't like him?
No.
Did she love Dawson, in your opinion?
She loved her children, all of them, very, very much.
And during that period of time, let's say October, November of 2022, what did you observe about Lindsay?
She reached out to me in November and told me that she felt unwell.
Did she describe any symptoms for you?
She did.
Tell the jurors what she said.
She felt, mostly she had insomnia. She was losing her appetite. She was very anxious and sad.
Did she tell you that she was seeing doctors?
Yes.
And at some point, did you recommend, did she come to you and ask you for help regarding seeing a doctor?
Yeah, she asked for my support.
And did you obviously gave it to her?
Yes.
And what did you do to make any recommendations for her?
I reached out to my colleagues who were running a clinic for women that were struggling postpartum.
Would that be the South Shore?
Yes, correct.
And at some point, as a result of your intervention, was a nurse practitioner, Julie Hall, agreeing to step in and help out?
Yes.
Did Lindsay see Julie?
I believe she did.
And you really pretty much were out of the mix at that point. You basically made the connection, knew that she was on there, right?
Correct.
Did you find that Lindsay was interested at all times in trying to get better and see doctors?
Very much so.
Did you find at all, do you have an opinion with your observations of Lindsay as to whether or not she was offered help and would just spurn it and not see doctors and not have
She was
treatment?
begging for help.
And during that period of time, you were there for her by text and by telephone and in person?
Correct.
Now, during that time that you were, let's say November and into December, the holiday season, do you recall the holidays for 2022?
Yes.
Can you tell us, was that a fun time for the Clancys?
Lindsay was struggling. We were all very concerned.
Yeah. Interesting, right? She's in the same profession as Lindsay, labor and delivery nurse, and they have that connection. But to help Lindsay, she put her in contact with someone that she knew could potentially help her through these issues. And she's working full time at the time. So the direct sort of lays the foundation for the relationship and the acknowledgement that something was wrong, right? That she's not right. Things are tough. Talk about tough. I want you to take a look now at the cross-examination by the prosecutor of Susan Clancy. A couple of moments, especially what I'm going to show you here at the end, get a little uncomfortable. Let's watch.
In the time period, well, you know, she was going and going to see providers and meeting with Julie and going to the clinic. Did you offer to help out more with the kids?
Yes.
You were still working full-time at that time, weren't you?
Yes.
So fair to say it was kind of limited based on your schedule?
Correct.
Did you have a normal schedule that you worked at that time period?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, as a nurse, did you work day shifts? Did you work mids?
I worked the day shift.
Okay. So did you offer to watch the kids at nighttime?
I don't remember exactly.
Did the kids come to stay at your house overnight so that she could get some sleep?
No, they didn't.
Fair to say you offered and she didn't want the kids to come to your house, right?
No, that's not right.
Well, did they ever sleep over your house?
No, they didn't.
And Cora was 5, right?
Yes, correct. She turned 5 that December.
So at any point, they never stayed over?
We decided together it was best for them to be in their own beds at their own house with all their belongings. And Lindsay's parents were very actively involved in staying over and helping out. So it was the best decision that they stay home in their own beds.
So prior to the November of 2022, did you and your husband ever come and stay over the night so that Patrick and Lindsay could go off?
We never did stay at their house.
And as far as kind of watching the kids or taking the kids outside of the house during the daytime, did you often take Cora on kind of day trips out to lunch?
Yeah, we used to go to lunch together.
How about Dawson? Did you take him one-on-one out to?
Not as much. He was younger.
And how about Callan? Did you ever take him out of the house without Lindsay?
No.
And are you aware that Lindsay told one of the therapists that she wasn't close with you as in-laws? And that
I didn't know that, no.
That she said she doesn't generally allow the in-laws to watch her children?
I did watch the kids.
Okay, but are you aware that she told the therapist that?
No.
Are you aware she told the therapist that she didn't have any particular reason why and that they don't bug me about it either?
I didn't know any of that.
Now, Lindsay, the defendant, she communicated with you via text about her issues with sleep and the medication she was taking, right?
Yes.
And as far as the ER visit where the trazodone was prescribed, do you recall having a back and forth conversation with her about that it's okay to increase it if you weren't getting any relief?
The doctor told her that, so I repeated that.
Okay. And so you're aware that she was, in fact, increasing the dose?
I did not know that.
At some point, after being prescribed some medication, you recall that Lindsay told you that she thought she developed a benzo dependency, correct?
I vaguely remember that.
That would be on November 29th, where she says, I just deep down inside of me feel that I've developed a benzo dependence after just 2 weeks of using it, and I feel like no one is hearing that and addressing it, and we keep throwing different meds in the mix that aren't really addressing the real issue. Do you recall that message?
It sounds familiar.
And she asks you, or you respond, so hard, I don't know what to do, so should you not use it? And she responds, I guess not, but then I don't sleep, right? Do you recall that?
I can't say for certain. It sounds right.
Okay.
I don't remember a lot of specifics.
November 30th, she says, and I'm just gonna try to show on the screen here. She says, I'm not okay and I'm terrified of taking meds tonight. Do you see that in the green?
Yes.
And then your response is, why are you scared? Why happens if you don't take them? What are you afraid of? What about Ambien, right? You're actively trying to help her kind of figure out the medication.
Yes, there were a lot of medications.
Okay. You're aware she wasn't prescribed all the medications at one time, but just that a lot of different combinations were kind of thrown around as options, right?
It seemed confusing.
That she's very clear and she tells you which medications she's taking, right? Ativan and Remeron.
Probably.
Okay. And then she also tells you on November 30th when you're talking about it, she says, I know they take time to reach a therapeutic level to have the desired effect, right? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And then you respond, exactly. And she tells you that she's just depressed and she thinks it was brought on by the medication, right?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Well, on November 30th at 7:52, I was never ever this depressed. It was brought on by the medication. Did you say that or did she say that?
She probably said that.
Okay. Now, you were asked about the holidays and Thanksgiving. You remember Thanksgiving? Where did you guys go for Thanksgiving?
To my daughter's house.
And do you remember telling the grand jury that during Thanksgiving things were better?
I don't recall.
Well, do you remember her saying that she said things were better? Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Okay. You were asked, what was Lindsay like during the big Thanksgiving gathering? What observations did you make? Answer, she smiled. The girls all had Thanksgiving t-shirts on that sort of matched. We took a picture. She mostly focused on the kids and interacting with the cousins and the aunts and uncles. At one point, she went off a little into the distance, and I approached and asked her how she was doing, and she said, I'm trying hard to get better. I'm still working at it. I asked about her sleep. I thought that was important, and also the fact that she lost some weight. She didn't have an appetite, and she said things were getting better.
Okay.
During the holidays, you, in fact, took some time off of work so that you were around a little bit more, correct?
Correct.
And so when you were around a little bit more, did you spend all day, every day at their house?
No.
Fair to say you would come sometimes play with the kids, right?
Yes.
Do shopping for her?
Correct.
And then you actually went on vacation.
Yes.
You and your husband went to Aruba.
Yes.
How long were you in Aruba?
5 or 6 days, I think.
Okay. And now moving towards Christmas, you had dinner with them at their house on the 23rd, right?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember breakfast on Christmas Day?
Yes.
Was that at their house or someplace else?
Their house.
Okay. And then what did you guys do after breakfast?
We went to church.
And fair to say you've previously testified that breakfast was great.
Yes.
And that church was beautiful.
Yes.
And in fact, the defendant, she told you that it was great and that she was glad she went to church that day on Christmas Day.
Yes, she did.
And then after that, you're aware they went down to Connecticut to see her family.
Right.
Now, are you an active member in the Catholic Church?
Yes.
Okay. So you're aware that murder is considered a mortal sin?
Counsel, could I see you over here?
So we're in the defense case, and the basis of the defense case is that it was the mental illness that caused her to do what she did. We heard from treating physicians during the prosecution's case, but now we're hearing from experts, and the defense is calling Dr. Donald Conde, a psychiatrist. And this is absolutely critical for the defense to try to prove to this jury that she was suffering from postpartum psychosis. Let's take a listen.
Well, if I look at my affidavit, when she stopped taking the medication, the Zoloft, she now felt better as she had felt before she took the Zoloft, but she was less anxious.
What was the next medication?
She was put on Benadryl and had some difficulty sleeping, but also was worried that night because her son was coughing, and she worried a great deal about the children's health.
And that would be something that would also intrude on her sleep, worrying about her children?
Yes.
Okay. What other symptomology traveling through November into December did she relate to Dr. Tufts, according to your review of the medical records?
Well, she talked about things like dizziness, feeling sedated in the morning when she woke up, if she got any sleep at all. And I think she used the term brain fog at times. These are sometimes symptoms that people who are experiencing postpartum depression frequently complain about. She continued to complain about anxiety.
Well, it's not what they're complaining about, it's what they're living, right?
It is a very unpleasant experience, yes.
And continuing on through November, at some point did she leave or stop with Tufts and go to another healthcare provider by way of either emergency room initially and then another healthcare provider?
Yes.
Who was that?
She started treatment with Rebecca Gelada, a nurse practitioner at South Shore perinatal program.
Now, one of the things that was apparent that we, if you recall, I believe, that she also had initially been referred there by a friend of the family. Is that right? To that perinatal clinic?
Yes, my understanding from the records is that Miss Clancy's mother-in-law was friendly with a nurse practitioner who practiced in the perinatal program, and I believe it actually started the perinatal program.
Yes, and ultimately, or in the beginning, she was treated by a Julie Paul. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you remember looking at the medical records and that on November 27th of 2022, nurse practitioner Julie Paul reported that Lindsay stated that she was disassociated, that she was not in touch with reality. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And what is that a symptomology? Is that a symptom of psychosis, to be disassociated and not in touch with reality?
It certainly can be. Dissociation it can mean that people feel like things around them are not real.
Right, and that's a pretty serious feeling to have, right?
It is.
And that's pretty common, unfortunately, with women that have postpartum psychosis, right?
It certainly can be, yes.
And what are the other symptomologies of postpartum psychosis, sir?
Well, psychosis in general just means a lack of understanding of what's real as opposed to what is not. So a person with psychosis can have delusions, which are fixed false beliefs. They could believe that, for example, they have been told by God to do something. Okay. They can also have hallucinations at times.
What kind of hallucinations?
Most people have auditory hallucinations, not visual hallucinations.
Hearing. Is that correct? Auditory is hearing, right?
Yes.
Okay, as opposed to what?
As opposed to visual hallucinations.
Visual. And in the course of reviewing the medical records, did you see that, in fact, that Lindsay had auditory, no visual hallucinations, but auditory voices?
At times, she reported that she had heard a voice, yes.
Okay. Do you recall that as the time went by that in December, do you remember seeing in the medical records that she was relating that she was heavy, that she couldn't get out of bed, that she couldn't bathe, that she couldn't react, she couldn't love, she couldn't feel? Do you remember any of that from looking at the medical records?
Yes, those are all phrases that I recall from the medical records.
They were all coming from her, right?
Yes.
To the doctors.
Yes.
That would be Dr. Tufts and then Dr. Gelada. Is that right?
Nurse Gelada.
Sorry, nurse practitioner Gelada. You recall, sir, that nurse practitioner Gelada prescribed additional medications to Lindsay during that period of time from November through December.
Yes.
Again, I would ask, when a woman has a baby and the placenta, I think I pronounced that right, is through the birth, all of a sudden, what happens? It stops that massive influx of hormones, or it increases that influx of hormones?
Well, some hormones go up, like prolactin, and some hormones go down very quickly.
What effect does that have, in your experience, and your education and your research on women that have a baby? What effect does that have on them?
Well, many women experience postpartum blues.
What is postpartum blues?
It's a feeling of...
thing.
I'm sorry?
Sounds like a 50s thing. What's postpartum blues?
It's a feeling of low energy and being sad, not as serious or usually as long as postpartum depression.
What is postpartum depression? Is that the next level?
It's a more serious condition where the woman may feel that she can't connect to the baby, that she feels isolated, she has no energy, she may also have insomnia.
So, for example, if a woman is unable to sleep, feels as though she's losing a contact or connection with her infant, is stressing about not having that contact with her infant, feels that she's unable to emote or feel love or any emotions and can't relate to people, and also is out of reality, are those, or disassociative state, are those, in your opinion, symptoms of postpartum depression and or leading to postpartum psychosis?
Yes, they are.
And Lindsay had those symptoms, didn't she?
She reported all those symptoms, yes.
Defense can check that box. They've put the proof in front of the jury. If the jury accepts it, this could be the most important testimony from the entire case. So for Lindsay Clancy, there's not just an allegation of postpartum psychosis, but also undiagnosed or slightly diagnosed bipolar disorder. So let's take a listen to Dr. Donald Conde as he talks about that and then faces the important cross-examination by the Commonwealth.
What is bipolar disorder? What does that mean?
Bipolar is the newer name for what used to be called manic depressive illness. It describes an illness where people's moods go up, which is the manic phase, and then go down, which is the depressed phase. Categories of bipolar disorder, bipolar 1 is the most serious. Bipolar 2 disorder also has similar fluctuations of mood, but in both cases of bipolar disorder, most people spend more time being depressed than they do being manic.
Now, just tell me, what does manic mean? What does that actually mean?
They feel usually euphoric, that they don't have...
They're up?
You're really up.
Okay.
You're extremely optimistic. You might spend a lot of money foolishly, but you wouldn't worry about that because certainly you're going to win the lottery. You can just feel it. So there can be psychotic thoughts along with bipolar mania, unreasonable expectations. Like I said, that you're destined to win the lottery, or in serious cases, you can believe that God is speaking to you and has appointed you to do some special thing in life.
How about excessive cleaning and, let's say, divesting oneself of personal property, cleaning garages, things of that nature?
There was talk in the records of an episode where Miss Clancy and her husband cleaned out the garage, but it was difficult to tell from the records whether or not that represented what we would call a hypomanic episode.
Exercise. Was there a lot of references to exercise?
There were a lot of references to exercise, and exercise can be a very useful thing.
Sure, that's one of the things that a woman postpartum may very well be prescribed to do by a doctor or a nurse practitioner like Gilletta, right?
I believe that nurse practitioner Julie Paul recommended a long run at one point.
So there's nothing wrong with a woman going to, let's say, Kingsbury or whatever it is, or taking her kids to the local gym with a swimming pool and trying to get some exercise in the postpartum stage. That doesn't, that's something you wouldn't hold against her, right?
No.
Okay. Now, how about, are you aware that within a very short period of time after she had baby Callan, that she actually ran a road race?
Yes.
Is that indicative of a person that's kind of ramped up and doing these things you're talking about?
It's unusual to decide to run so soon after delivering a baby. I believe that she ran on the day that she might have delivered her last child, Callan.
That's correct. In reference to the bipolar disorder that we touched upon, sir, is that something that's a consideration when you're treating, as a psychiatrist, a woman who's coming to you for help and expressing concerns about these symptoms that we've talked about?
Yes.
Why?
Well, some people with bipolar disorder, especially given the fact that depression is a prominent symptom in bipolar disorder, become suicidal and can even commit suicide. So that's a very serious possibility that has to be considered.
Did any of the nurse practitioners consider that as a possible diagnosis?
The records indicate that Ms. Clancy was frequently asked if she had a plan to kill herself, even after she reported having what was called passive suicidal ideation. But it was reported very, very frequently in the records.
As of January 12th of 2023, you're aware that the only active prescriptions for the defendant were for amitriptyline, right?
Yes.
And Valium as needed, and trazodone.
That sounds correct, yes.
So throughout the course of your review of the records and all of the different medications that she was on from October through January, she wasn't on all the medications at the same time, correct?
No, not at the same time.
And it's fair to say she was only on maybe 3 medications at one time.
3, there might have been 4 at one point, but yes.
And she had expressed particular medications that she wished to return to, like Ativan at some point, correct?
She was quite ambivalent about Ativan and talked a great deal in the records about being worried that she was addicted to it.
But Ativan tended to work for her, correct?
It made her feel less anxious. Yes.
And she actually described that at certain points to the providers that when she felt intrusive thoughts or she had a bad experience, that she took the Ativan and the thoughts were gone. Didn't she not?
I'm not sure that she said the intrusive thoughts were gone, but she would feel less anxious when she took it.
And as far as your conversations about hallucinations and auditory hallucinations, you indicated that at some point, or at points, I think was your testimony, that the defendant did hear a voice. But you're aware that she never reported to Jennifer Tufts that she heard a voice?
She did not.
She never reported to Rebecca Gelada that she heard a voice, did she?
She did not.
She never reported to Letitia Dukes that she heard a voice?
She did not.
And the only time she's ever said that she heard this voice was on January 24th of 2023. Is that fair to say?
Correct. Would you agree that there are reasons that a woman would not tell the doctor or minimize their symptoms out of fear?
Yes.
What kind of fear? Fear of what?
Well, in the records, it's stated that Ms. Clancy reported she was worried that her children would be taken away from her, perhaps by the Department of Children and Families, if she reported very severe symptoms. The other thing is, as a health care professional, boards of registration sometimes take a dim view of people who have been in treatment for certain psychiatric illnesses. And so she might have been concerned about her nursing license, but that's speculation.
So there are other reasons why a person may be concerned about telling healthcare providers, mandated reporters, that they're hearing voices, correct?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that you don't have to see the proverbial unicorn in the corner to your health provider to be suffering from psychosis?
Yes, that's true.
And can you tell us, Counsel was asking about the symptomology, psychosis, is that something that just grinds on for day after week after month, or is that something that comes on out of nowhere very quickly?
No, overall.
It can be quite episodic.
What does that mean?
It means that an episode can start and stop, and then an interval of time goes by. It could be days, weeks, or months, and then another episode occurs.
Counsel asked you about bipolar disorder, the suspicions of bipolar disorder from Dr. Gelada, and then talked about the prescriptions that were prescribed. Is it, in your opinion, appropriate to prescribe a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor to a person that is bipolar?
No, overall.
It would be considered something to be done cautiously and usually with a mood stabilizer begun at the same time to prevent the possibility of making manic symptoms worse.
And you can see what just happened there. The expert psychiatrist attacking the care that was given to Lindsay Clancy, and basically through his expert pointing the finger at the doctors and nurse practitioners who were prescribing and diagnosing all the symptoms and problems that Lindsay Clancy was in the midst of. In a murder trial, the surviving family members are who we consider to be the victims. And in this case, one of those victims is one of the grandmothers of the children, and that would be Lindsay's mother. She's the mother of the defendant, but she's the grandmother of the children who were killed by Lindsay. So she is one of the victims of the case. So her testimony, from my perspective, incredibly difficult. What a tough spot she's been put in. You know she loved her grandchildren, absolutely adored them, but she's also a mom. Now, I'm going to show you her cross-examination now, because she's not just an emotional type of witness. She is a fact witness, because she is having conversations via text message and in person with her daughter, Lindsay. And for the jury to understand the mindset of Lindsay Clancy in the days, weeks, and months leading up to the killing of her children, it's important to understand what she was saying, what she was thinking, and the observations of her own mother. So let's go into the courtroom to watch this crucial testimony from Paula Musgrove, Lindsay's own mother.
On the 18th, January 18th, again, you're reaching out, and she says, "Hi, Mom, I'm doing all right. How about you?" And you say you're good. You're thinking about visiting that weekend. And she says, "That sounds good." And you ask her about being able to get out and exercise, and she said she's been walking on the treadmill at the gym for exercise. And you asked her if she started a new medication and if she's feeling better. And she says, "Feel okay, just not great. I did start it 2 nights ago." You said, "Is that the one that takes a while to feel the effects?" She said, "Yup, weeks." And you said, "Is the okay that you're feeling now better than what you were feeling a few weeks ago?" And she said, "Yes." Do you remember that?
Again, I don't remember the specific text, just remember texting back and forth daily about how she's feeling, about, what's different medication-wise, but I can't say I remember that specific text that you're reading me. But again, if they're there, then they were done by us.
Right. And so on the 19th of January, again, you're checking in and say, "How are you feeling today? Can you tell if anything's different with the new medication?" She says, "I'm feeling all right. Nothing new really yet because it takes weeks to really work, but I'm okay." You asked if she's still sleeping well, and she says decently, and the kids get up a lot. So again, more of the same check-ins daily, seeing how she's doing, seeing how she's sleeping, right?
Correct.
And then on the 20th, you reach out, "Is it pizza and movie night?" She says, "Just pizza and playing." And you tell her you're leaving at 9, bringing dessert for the kids, and she says, "Sounds great." So you're talking about your visit that weekend. Is that right?
Yes.
And in these texts prior to the visit, you say that it's been a while since you've seen them. So it sounds like from these texts, you're checking in with her every day from January 7th, 2023, all the way up to your visit on January 21st, 2023. You're checking in with her. So you're at home in Connecticut from the 7th until the 21st.
Correct.
And then on the 22nd, that Sunday, Lindsay, Pat, and the older kids, they go to the Carney's house for that bonfire and get together, and you stayed home with Callan, right?
Correct.
And then after they get home, you and your husband left, is that correct?
Yes.
And on the way home, you texted on January 22nd, 2023 at 7:55 p.m., "Enjoyed seeing everyone this weekend. Nice to see you doing better." Is that correct?
If that's what that says, yes, that's correct. I don't exactly remember the text, but yes, if that's what it says, yes.
So from your text, not saying she was doing great, but she was doing better than she was, according to your text, or appeared to be.
The text from me was meant to encourage her, because I didn't think it did any good to discourage her. So the text was meant not necessarily what I actually observed that weekend, but it was meant to encourage her, because I was encouraging her to do things with the kids to kind of try to get back to normal. So it's not necessarily a representation of exactly what I observed that weekend.
But that weekend, she was able to go to a friend's house with the older kids and Pat and spend a few hours there, correct?
Correct.
And she was able to do activities and hang out with you and your husband. There's a photograph and evidence of the two of you sitting on the couch smiling and hanging out together, so you were able to interact with her, correct?
Correct. The photograph was taken by Cora because Cora wanted to use my phone and take her picture, so Lindsay and I were going to put a smile on our face and let Cora take a picture. Yes, but again, there was other observations I made that weekend, but it was not, I didn't think it was in Lindsay's best interest to discourage her or point out those, because she was making every attempt to feel better and to do things to make herself feel better. So as a mother, I was encouraging her.
Well, you didn't say, I hope you feel better, or you're going to get there, or you're doing it. You actually said, nice to see you doing better, correct? That's what you wrote?
Those were my encouraging words, yes.
And from January 7th up through January 22nd, Lindsay repeatedly told you she was doing okay, she was feeling a little bit better. Not completely better, not 100%, but she kept telling you, I feel a little bit better, I feel a little bit better. You even asked her, is the better you're feeling now better than a few weeks ago? And she said yes, correct?
That's correct, without my observation of her.
And what she was responding to you in text, correct?
Correct.
Take a look at the scene as we have what I call the return of the Pink Ladies. And yes, there are some men there as well. I didn't think I was going to see it again. But it absolutely happened.
Thank you. That's all I can say. It's amazing.
We love you, Kevin.
You can see the lineup, people trying to get in the courthouse, the cheering for the attorney.
I did. I was like, oh, I got all the wedding stuff done yesterday.
Absolutely jaw-dropping that it's happened again. That's Lindsay Clancy. The cheers as she drives by in custody in that van. Unreal. All right, so let's hear from the folks who are showing up for Lindsay Clancy and what they have to say about the case and why they're there and what they believe.
I don't want to say what happened, but I can say that she was looking for help and she didn't get the help that she needed. She got downplayed. And this is what happened when women share, I don't feel good. Because we have to be strong 24/7. We cannot feel weak. We cannot feel like, oh, I cannot deal with this right now, because we have to, as a woman, as a mom, we always have to be there, regardless. Nobody will be there, oh, let me take that out of your back. So I don't want to say what happened. I know that she needed help.
It is not a protest, not a rally, just a silent support to let her know that she's seen, she's heard, which she was not seen or heard by the medical system, by her doctors, by her husband. So we want to let her know that she is seen and heard now. And we're hoping that maybe this unfortunate circumstance will maybe shed some light on postpartum for women, because unfortunately that is overlooked a lot, and women do get dismissed quite a bit from that.
She said silence, but it wasn't silence. There absolutely was cheering, and there was outward support. Very similar to Karen Reed to a certain extent. Let's take a listen to Kevin Reddington, who on the way in, again, was greeted by these folks. They love this guy, and here's what he had to say.
Mr. Reddington, what's your message to all these folks who are here today?
Thank you. That's all I can say. It's amazing.
We love you, Kevin.
Kevin, are you surprised at just how much attention this case has gotten? I mean, people are coming from Maine.
It's the message. It really is. It's the message that just has reverberated, throughout the whole country.
What is that
Reddington's
message?
fighting for women's rights.
No, I
for
don't.
health care.
I think that it's the mental health system. I hate to use the word health care, because unfortunately in this case we can see it hasn't been health care, and I think that it shines a light on this issue. I mean, when a woman is going through what so many people do, and they go to a doctor, and the doctor says, you know, here, take this pill, take that pill, take this pill, and then they basically treat them for 15, 20 minutes and send them on their way. It's just not right.
And to those who can't wrap their heads around sympathizing with a mother who killed her 3 children, what do you say to them?
I think it's almost like when you're picking a jury, and sometimes somebody will say, well, I don't agree with, you know, this allegation of murder. I mean, none of us do. But that's what we have juries for. They pass between the government and a defendant to see if they can prove their case.
Is she aware of this support, and what does she think of this support?
I'm going to go in and see her right now. I'm sure that she is, and if she isn't, she will be.
What do you think about?
She's so beat up and just so sad. This will really help her out, I think. It's awesome.
Tell her we love her. What do you think about you being the advocate for all women right now?
I'm not an advocate.
You are. But you are. But you are.
Man, get to work.
But you are.
So I want to go outside the courthouse out in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and bring in the director of photography for Law and Crime and Court TV, Richie Morgenstern. Richie, great to see you. You've been there at the courthouse. Can you describe for us that atmosphere, the change, the level of support that Lindsay Clancy, this accused child killer, is getting?
Yes, pleasure to be here, Vinnie. Yes, the energy has been rising each day, but today kind of blew through the roof as far as the crowd, the way that everyone showed up just came completely supporting Lindsay. You know, I feel like now it's more important than ever to be paying attention to this trial, because the outcome is going to be one to be remembered.
Absolutely. You know, we experienced the Karen Reed case in Massachusetts, and I was there. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of mostly women, like it is today, I presume, at Lindsay Clancy, wearing pink. They're supporting someone. Very unusual circumstances. What's the vibe that you get from the crowd? Like, what are they saying? Where are they coming from? What did you sort of gather from them?
The vibe today was mental health, the support for women. A lot of people here kind of share some of the same shared some of the same feelings that Lindsay was going through. I did hear a few people saying that, where they can really relate to what Lindsay's going through, and they want to bring that attention to the rest of the world. And I think this is actually the place where it's going to happen, because, I mean, there had to be 1,000 people here today in pink. You know, they came in, as many as they could, came into the courtroom to show her support, They had our car drive by today, and I don't know if I got the shot of it, but they actually rolled down the window for Lindsay so she could see the crowd and how they were here to support her. And the energy is one I don't think is going to quit after this trial. I think they're going to stay to it until everyone knows that women are going through something that just everyone can't understand unless they've had children themselves.
And as I look over your left shoulder, it looks like there's still some of these folks that are still hanging around. There's not much happening in the courthouse today, this afternoon, but it looks like there's still folks there.
Yeah, some of the supporters really want to let Reddington know how much they appreciate him and how much he's kind of being an advocate for women right now.
I did see him getting some of what we've seen in some other trials. Like the first time I ever saw actual applause for not criminal defense attorneys, but for attorneys at a courthouse was at Johnny Depp. We saw it obviously at the Karen Reed case, and I guess Kevin Reddington is getting some of that same love.
Kevin Reddington is getting a lot of love. I would almost say, I mean, I was at Karen Reed also. Different type of energy. You know, this is more about mental health. That was kind of about, you know, cops and, you know, the situations they have to go through. Here, I feel like this one's going to last longer as far as just the mental health and what women go through when they have children and when they're going through the process of being pregnant. And then, you know, they still need to be cared for after being pregnant.
I think you're really touching on something here, and you wonder, like, a lot of what we're seeing, I was not expecting this type of reaction to this case, and it's taken on a life of its own. But what you're saying is really interesting, and it's different. And there, people look at it and say, yeah, it's kind of like Karen Reed, but it's not really like Karen Reed. What's drawing them is something that is much, much different. Let me ask you this, though, because the other part of all of this is that there are 3 children who are dead, 3 innocent children who were strangled to death. But I did notice in the crowd that some of the women who were there brought their children with them to the courthouse today.
Yes, that is very unique. I don't remember any situation where a mother is admitting to actually killing her children, and then you have thousands of women coming out in support of her. So yes, that is very unique, and especially very different from Karen Reed. And that's why I say, like, this case means a lot, not just to women, but to, our country in general, to bring and shed light onto the situation that these women are going through.
Yeah, it's not an accident. These women are sharing their stories. They're there for a reason, because it touched a nerve with them. And then ultimately the question will be in this trial is, how does all of that impact the jury inside the courtroom itself? Richie, it's been great speaking with you. Any sort of observations that you've made during the course of this case from inside the courtroom?
Well, today was different. Today, they actually, usually the judge just comes out and asks the whole jury as one whole, have you heard anything? Is there anything we need to be concerned about? And, everybody just kind of shakes their head. But today, the judge wanted to take each juror one by one, and ask them direct questions, swear them under oath, and have that face-to-face conversation to see how they felt about today. Because if you look at the shots earlier, they covered the whole lawn out here, so there was no way that jury members did not see the crowd, and they saw the flood of pink. And even when you came into the courtroom, they kind of made the suggestion to cover up a little bit of the pink, but the courtroom was filled with pink also. So I think that's why the judge wanted to have some one-on-one talks with the jury members. It's a situation that's across the nation. We had people driving in from Pennsylvania, Maine, South Carolina flying in. So we didn't just have people from Plymouth showing up here or Dedham or anything like that. People flying in for this. So yes, it's got the attention of our country. It's got the attention of all the women. So I think we're in for quite of a show moving forward, especially for closings.
Yeah, absolutely. Closings and then deliberations and ultimately a verdict that this jury hopefully will reach one way or the other, whatever it is that they can all agree as to what this all means. Richie Morgenstern, great to speak with you. Always doing great work. Director of photography for Law and Crime and Court TV. We'll speak again soon. So we're very close to the end of the defense case, and this witness, Sheila Kavanaugh, is a board-certified chaplain who saw Lindsay a week after the killings of the 3 children. Really interesting witness. I think sheds a lot of light on the case. Let's take a listen.
In the course of your duties as a chaplain at Brigham and Women's Hospital, did circumstances bring you in contact with Lindsay Clancy?
Yes, they did.
Can you tell the jurors what happened?
I arrived on the morning of Wednesday, January 25th, 2023. I arrived at approximately 8:30 that morning because I was there to relieve the overnight chaplain who was carrying the pager. I was taking over the pager shift, which went from 9 to 1 p.m., although I was working a full day. When I arrived that morning, she said to me, "Did you hear the news?" And I...
Well, okay, so...
Sustain.
Okay.
So you got to object, so you can't say what someone told you, okay? That's hearsay?
Okay.
Okay. So I can say, as a result of the conversation with that person, what happened?
I was summoned to the Director of Spiritual Care's office.
Did you have a conversation with her?
I did.
All right. And as a result of that conversation, what did you do?
I went to Unit 8C in the Tower building of Brigham to meet with Lindsay Clancy.
And what time of day was this?
Roughly between 8:30 and 9:30 that morning.
And when you went in to see Lindsay, what did you observe?
Well, the unit itself was filled with law enforcement officers, both outside the doors of the unit. There was Brigham security, but the unit itself was flooded. There were people from Plymouth County, Boston City Police, Brigham Security, so I had to make my way through concentric circles of law enforcement to even get to the room. I was permitted to see Lindsay, although she could not speak at that time.
And what was her condition that you observed?
She was dressed in medical armor. She had tubes, she was intubated, she had bandages, she had a neck brace. She was just covered and layered in equipment that enabled her to breathe.
Now I'm showing you Exhibit 121 and asking, this may be South Shore, or it could be Brigham and Women's, but is this indicative of what she appeared to be when you first saw her?
That looks like it's from South Shore because yes.
Does she have the same?
Similar.
Very similar?
Very similar.
Like that?
Yes, very similar.
Did you see her again on another date?
I did. I saw her the next day. Again, she could not speak. She was intubated as well. That was the first week that she was hospitalized.
When was the next time that you saw her?
The next time I saw her was the following week. I have a calendar here of my visits. I saw her on Tuesday, January 31st, and she had been extubated at that point so she could speak.
So the tube had been removed, she was able to communicate, and that was on January 31st?
I believe she was extubated the weekend of the 28th, but I didn't work that weekend, so I saw her on Tuesday the 31st.
All right. Tell the jurors what you observed and what, if any, conversation you had with Lindsay on the 31st. And let me ask you, how long had it been that they removed the tube?
Perhaps a day or two.
A day or two, okay. Tell the jurors what she said to you.
She continued to look like the photograph you just saw. She was covered, tubes everywhere, the neck brace. Her emotional state was very neutral, a flat affect. But I remember vividly the first thing she said to me. Now, she had heard me for a couple of days. We had been praying together. And so when I went in on Tuesday the 31st, she said to me as I held her hand to comfort her, "I am so glad my children are safe."
Was there any other conversation that you had with her?
I replied theologically to Lindsay, and I said, "Lindsay, your children are safe. They're safe in heaven with God." And I held her hand throughout that conversation, and we prayed for them.
Did she make any other statements to you?
She did. She alluded to having heard a voice, and the voice, according to Lindsay, told her that if she did not follow the command, neither she nor her children would be safe.
And did she indicate whether it was a male voice, a female voice, loud, soft?
She alluded to the fact that it was a male voice and it was persistent.
Any further conversation that you recall about that, not about general things, you know?
That came up several times. I visited Lindsay minimally 14 times while she was hospitalized at the Brigham, and the voice conversation came up several times during several of our visits.
Now, after Lindsay was transferred or cleared to go from Brigham and Women's Hospital, did she go to another facility?
She did. She went to Spalding Rehabilitation Hospital.
And do you know when that was?
That was roughly late February, perhaps around the 23rd.
And did you continue to see Lindsay at Spalding Rehab?
I did.
Do you know when she left Spalding Rehab?
In the late March, early April time frame, perhaps.
Okay. Now, Brigham and Women's Hospital in Spalding Rehab are under the same umbrella of hospitals, is that right?
They are. So Brigham and Women's Hospital and Spalding Rehab are under the Mass General Brigham complex. So for me to visit Lindsay in Spalding, I was still within the same hospital complex, and her psychiatrist at Spalding, as well as the chaplains, advised me to continue.
You can't say what anybody told me.
Oh, sorry.
So, when she was discharged from Spalding Rehab, where did she go?
She went to Tewksbury State Hospital.
And fair to say that that would be back around February. It's been a little more than 3 years, 3.5 years.
Yes.
Is that correct? Now, when you saw her in Spalding Rehab and in Brigham and Women's, you were acting in the course of your job. Is that right?
That's correct.
So you're being compensated, you're getting your paycheck and that type of thing, right?
Yes.
How many times have you seen Lindsay at Tewksbury Hospital?
Perhaps 200 times.
Tell the jury why you continue to see her for 200.
Sustained.
So, can you tell us how often on a weekly basis you would see her at Tewksbury?
Yes. When Lindsay was admitted to Tewksbury State Hospital, I continued to see her on a weekly basis. We had built up a very comfortable, respectful rapport, and I felt it was in her best interest to continue that as she healed. She was still in deep grief. She was suffering.
Sustained.
So
that opinion will be stricken.
So, did she express anything about her children and their loss over that period of 200 times that you saw her thereabouts in Tewksbury?
Objection.
No, overruled.
Yes.
Other jurors?
Lindsay talks frequently about her children. She loves them deeply. She carries immense grief.
Objection.
Overruled. Next question.
And has that continued to your observation?
It continues presently.
When was the last time that you saw Lindsay in Tewksbury?
Just prior to the trial starting.
Powerful testimony. Obviously, she's created a relationship with Lindsay. Jurors can evaluate her credibility based upon that. However, this is important stuff, talking about the voices, talking about the children being safe. The children being safe means she may not be able to distinguish between right and wrong. The children aren't safe. The children are dead because she killed them, but she believes that they're safe. That goes to that issue, which is something the jury can consider. So the testimony of Sheila Kavanaugh is important, potentially very powerful, but subject to cross-examination. You know this prosecutor does not back down. This prosecutor goes after witnesses, absolutely does, in a respectful manner, but most of the time in a respectful manner, but does so. So let's see what happens here as Sheila Kavanaugh, the board-certified chaplain, is cross-examined by the assistant district attorney.
You were talking about on January 25th, 2023, when you first saw Lindsay in direct examination, and you said that there were a lot of police officers in the area, correct?
Correct.
But you mentioned that some of them were security personnel from the hospital, correct?
Correct.
And you're aware that the security personnel for the hospital don't work for the state police, the Duxbury Police, or the Plymouth County DA's office, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so they're separate and apart from law enforcement, correct?
Yes.
And then are you also aware that on January 25th, 2023, there was a search warrant being executed to collect evidence from the defendant and from the belongings that she had at the hospital?
No, I was not aware of that.
Were you aware that that collection of the search warrant required state police and personnel from the crime lab to be present for the collection of evidence?
I was not aware of that.
Were you aware that following that, at any given time, there were only 2 officers, either Duxbury Police, State Police, or Plymouth County Sheriffs, at her room, the defendant's room, at any given time?
I do recall that.
And they were stationed outside of her room, correct, in the hallway?
Yes.
Okay. So that the only time you saw this large amount of officers present was on the 25th, when there were security from the hospital and search warrants being executed, correct?
Perhaps.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that on January 31st, 2023, you spoke to the defendant, and she told you that she heard a voice telling her that if she did not follow the command, neither she nor her children would be safe, correct?
Correct.
You wrote very detailed notes that are contained in the Brigham and Women's Hospital records regarding your interactions with Lindsay Clancy, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And in all of these notes that detail every time you interacted with her, you never once wrote that she told you she heard a voice or what that voice said, correct?
Correct.
And you also said that this voice, talking about the voice, came up in several of your meetings, correct?
Correct.
And you never once wrote about any of it in any of your very detailed notes, correct?
Well, chaplain notes are not verbatim transcripts of patient conversations. I'm not there to evaluate the patient. I'm there to bear witness to their suffering.
Okay, but the question was, you did not document those statements in your notes, correct?
Correct.
But you did document some other statements in those notes, correct?
Perhaps.
For example, on February 6th, 2023, in a note that you wrote regarding your interaction with the defendant, you said that, or you wrote, Lindsay welcomed the visit and shared her fears of, quote, not being able to walk again, end quote. She continued to express her fears of how her inability to walk may make her vulnerable to others in the future. Do you recall writing that?
Yes.
Do you recall writing on February 9th, 2023, that the defendant was sitting in a chair adjacent to her bed and appeared to be visibly engaged, energized, and hopeful than in previous visits? Do you recall that?
Yes.
You also wrote in that note, Lindsay spoke hopefully of being discharged when the time arrives to Spalding, correct?
Correct.
And then in February 13th, 2023, you wrote in your note that Lindsay also expressed hopefulness in relation to her physical progress. She feels she has gained considerable physical strength and agility despite an inability to move her legs. She admitted that she feels, quote, deserving of this, end quote, in light of recent events. Do you remember writing that?
Yes.
Do you remember on February 16th, 2023, that you wrote in a note that the defendant expressed hopefulness with the news of her anticipated discharge to Spalding and seemed uplifted that she would be cared for in a facility with an excellent reputation?
Yes.
Do you recall writing on February 16th, 2023, that Paula, the defendant's mother, and Lindsay, the defendant, were playing a card game as they communed quietly, and that Lindsay expressed hopefulness with the news of her anticipated discharge to Spalding and seemed uplifted?
Yes.
And again, you've got all these details about her feelings and her thoughts and what she's doing, but nothing about the voices that you spoke of so many times, correct?
Correct.
And speaking of Spalding, you continued to visit her at Spalding, correct?
Yes.
In those conversations with her at Spalding, did she tell you that how in those first weeks at Spalding, that part of her physical therapy, she was working out with a yellow exercise band? No?
I don't recall her telling me that.
Did she tell you that during that time at Spalding, she reached out to a social worker there and asked for help filling out SSDI paperwork to get an income?
That would be beyond the scope of our conversation.
She didn't tell you those things?
No.
Thank you.
So, counsel has asked you about her filling out a form for SSDI. Were you aware of what expenses her family were incurring as a result of her physical incapacity, paralysis, and being in the hospital?
From my experience with thousands of patients, I had a very clear idea of the enormous expense.
There's a difference between, as the district attorney very appropriately referred to, that your comments were about her thoughts and her appearance and her feelings. Is that correct?
Correct.
There's a difference, however, between privileged communications with a chaplain and observations of a person's feelings and thoughts, correct?
Correct.
Tell the jury what effect privileged communication has when someone talks to you personally as a chaplain.
Because I'm not a medically trained clinician, I approach patients in a vortex of trust. Some of our chaplains at the Brigham are ordained clergy. And so there's this understanding that when a patient interacts with a chaplain, the conversations are confidential.
Do you put them in medical records?
No.
The words, like Lindsay indicated that she felt uplifted, I think the counsel read that twice. Were those your notes, or is that what she said to you? Did she say, I feel uplifted, or is that your
was my perception of Lindsay. It was not her words.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Como?
You said you're not allowed to put the defendant's words in your medical records, is that correct?
No, that's not correct. It's not that I'm not allowed. It's an understanding, and it's a conversation that's held in confidence with the patient.
Then why are there direct quotes in these medical records from the defendant?
Well, they're not verbatim transcripts.
No, not a transcript of the whole conversation, but you put phrases in quotes. For example, on February 6, 2023, where it says Lindsay welcomed the visit and shared her fears of, quote, not being able to walk again. So those were her words in your note, in quotes, in the medical record, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
I use my best judgment.
Okay.
The obvious implication here through this cross-examination is that the prosecutor is calling into question Sheila Kavanaugh, the chaplain's credibility about whether or not Lindsay Clancy actually told her that she heard voices. What's the jury going to do with that? So throughout our coverage of the case, we've spent a lot of time talking about the defense case, talking about the defense cross-examination, talking about the mental state, etc. And all of that is really connected to the defense of Lindsay Clancy. I want to circle back as we get close to the end of this case and circle back to the prosecutor and her opening statement to understand the prosecution theory in this case. It's their case. They brought it for a reason. They have a certain belief here. And because all of us have spent so much time on the defense and Patrick Clancy, etc., I think we're almost getting lost in the sauce is the prosecution case. The reason why they have charged Lindsay Clancy, exactly what they believe she did and why she deserves to be in prison for the rest of her life. So let's go back to the opening statement from the prosecutor with that in mind, because it's been a while and we've talked about a lot of other things, but ultimately this is why we're having a trial. Let's take a look.
During the course of this trial, that you'll hear the defendant made claims that either right after Patrick left the house or after he called her from the CVS, depending on which version of the events she's telling, she heard a voice, a male voice, a voice that she had never heard before, a voice that she never heard again. And that voice told her that it was her last chance, that she had to kill the kids so that she could kill herself. She immediately took action when she heard the voice, with no direction or details from this so-called voice, and she killed the children. Once she killed the children, the voice stopped. When you consider this information in the course of the trial, ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you consider the source, the timing, the substance of her statements about this voice, You're also going to hear from, or you may hear from, forensic psychologists and psychiatrists who talk about what's called command hallucinations and voices that people hear before they do something. And when you hear that testimony, I ask that you keep in mind the details of what she's saying the voice told her, and the details of when this voice spoke to her. Another important thing to remember throughout the course of this trial is that this is not a case about the Lindsay Clancy that sits before you today. This case is about the Lindsay Clancy on January 24th, 2023, at the time of the crimes. This was not a woman in the throes of psychosis on January 24th, 2023. This was a woman who acted intentionally, rationally, and swiftly to accomplish a very specific goal: to kill. You'll see and hear evidence about all the things that she did that day, what she did in the days leading up to this incident, leading to the murders. You'll hear her spending time with her family and friends. You'll hear her appearing to be in good spirits and doing better for all intents and purposes. On that very day, you'll hear she interacted with people at the doctor's office. She came home and took care of the kids. She talked to people on the phone and via text message. The evidence will show you she was not psychotic that day. Throughout the evidence in this trial, you will learn about the defendant being the classic overachiever in school, in her personal life, in her nursing career. She was someone who liked to control every little detail of her life, of her family's life. In contrast to pictures you'll see of the doting mother, the dedicated nurse, you'll also see a side of Lindsay Clancy that's different. Somebody extremely controlling, meticulous, and manipulative. The days were laid out with specificity. Strict schedules were expected to be maintained. Food was planned carefully. Sleep was scheduled to the minute. And in the time after Callan was born, her last baby, the family had to adjust. And by all sources that I expect you're going to hear at that trial, that summer was great. But after Patrick had finished his paternity leave and was back to work full-time, when she no longer had a nanny to watch the baby, do laundry, tidy up the house, follow her schedule, when she was responsible for it all, it was hard. It was hard for her to maintain that control. It was hard for her to bond with her kids. And in efforts to maintain control, she withheld information from her husband, from her doctors. She reported serious symptoms that were inconsistent with her daily activities, you'll hear. And ultimately, on January 24th, 2023, the defendant made a calculated decision. This was a woman who no longer liked the life she thought she wanted. It was getting harder and harder to control. And when she saw the opportunity to escape, she made the selfish choice to take it, and to take Cora, Dawson, and Callan first before attempting to take her own life. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a public debate about women's mental health and how the medical system treats women. This case is about this defendant, Lindsay Clancy. There is no dispute that she was dealing with mental health issues during this time period prior to the murders. There'll be medical records, medical doctors, mental health professionals that will talk about treatment, prescriptions, hospital visits. All that's going to be before you. The evidence will show that this defendant had a means and access to mental health that most people don't. And she chose to deal with her mental health issues in the worst way. She chose to manipulate her providers, seek out the quick and easy fix when she was feeling depressed and anxious. And when she didn't get what she expected, she chose an alternate route. She sought a different doctor. She changed medications after days. She disengaged from treatment when she didn't like the plan. After only 4 months in treatment, She made a choice, a deliberate and intentional decision that she did not want to try anymore. And because no one could take care of her kids the way she wanted them to, she had to take them with her. Despite all the precision that she exhibited that day, you'll hear, the timing of it all, the swiftness of the killings, overcoming the interruption of Patrick's phone call, what she did not anticipate was that she would not be able to complete the act by killing herself. Ladies and gentlemen, people with mental illness commit crimes every day and are responsible for them. The fact that someone may suffer or have a mental illness, a mental disease or defect is not the end of the inquiry when it comes to guilt or innocence. It is whether a person can appreciate the wrongfulness or criminality of the conduct and conform their conduct to the law. Do they know what they were doing, and can they control their actions? The evidence in this case will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant coldly and efficiently executed first Dawson, then Cora, and finally Callan. One by one, she strangled the life out of each one of them. She did so with no hesitation, with deliberate premeditation, and extreme atrocity and cruelty. She is criminally responsible for the murders because the evidence will prove to you that she knew exactly what she was doing. She drew her husband out of the house, their father, so that she had the opportunity and the time to carry out these murders. She maintained the ability to control her conduct, conform her conduct, when she attempted to kill herself to escape the consequences.
As this trial gets close to that moment when the jury is going to get the case, this will not be easy for them. This is not an easy case. There are such drastic facts and such severe facts on both sides of this that are going to make it really difficult. And I think it really comes down to the individual juror and what their initial gut reaction is to it, and then can they be moved from that? Because I think you take a room full of people, not everyone's going to have the same exact gut reaction. And those extreme facts, right? Lindsay Clancy strangled her children. It was violent. It took time. It took some level of planning. Patrick had to be out of the house. She had to be alone with the kids. And it took some time to individually strangle all three of them and then do what she did to herself. But to kill the children, it took some level of planning, and it took some level of time, strength, and it was one at a time. So there was time, presumably, to reflect in what you're doing. That's a bad fact for the defense. Now, a problem for the prosecution is that there's lots of prescriptions, lots of pills, which is indicative of all the medical care that she was seeking and getting, the cry for help. This was not out of left field. This is documented over the course of months, weeks, and in the days and hours and weeks leading up to this, she is screaming for help. And that is very extreme. And that's the real problem here is that, yes, this is someone who acknowledged she had a problem and an issue and wanted to get help. But on the other hand, the nature of what she actually did. So then it comes back to the question of what was wrong with Lindsay. What was wrong with her? There's definitely something wrong with her. Prosecutors have acknowledged it. It is the defense case. So the question becomes, is what was wrong with her a defense here that would make her not criminally responsible? And that's where you get to the expert testimony. And there was a trial that was national and big, and the national conversation, much like this one, and it was a quarter century ago, or more than a quarter century ago. It was Andrea Yates. And the same conversation that we're having now, we were having back then. And in that case, there were a couple of trials. She was convicted the first time, but then found not guilty by reason of insanity the second time around. And the expert who testified for her, the forensic expert who evaluated her, Dr. Philip Resnick, really made his mark in that case and became one of the leading experts in this area and continues to be so. And guess who evaluated Lindsay Clancy in this case? Dr. Philip Resnick. So the man who basically, through his expert testimony, is responsible for Andrea Yates, who drowned all her children, to be found not guilty, is the expert that Lindsay Clancy and Kevin Reddington are relying upon in this case. So let's take you inside the courtroom. There were some technical difficulties to get him to testify. It's a remote testimony via Zoom. The connection isn't the greatest, but the words that he is saying are so important to this case. Let's take a listen.
Can you tell the jurors, in your opinion, sir, with your years of experience in the issue of filicide, working for just the government on a number of cases and the defense, and your evaluation of Lindsay, can you tell this jury your opinion as to whether or not at the time of the killings that she was suffering from a disease or defect that impaired her ability to substantially appreciate and or conform her conduct to the requirements of the law?
Well, sure. Let me begin with the issue of whether she had a mental disease or a defect. Ms. Clancy had a severe depression. There is a book called the DSM, or Diagnostic Manual, prepared by the American Psychiatric Association, which lists criteria for various diseases. So in the diagnostic manual, for example, one needs to have 5 out of 9 symptoms to make a diagnosis of major depression. And Ms. Clancy, as she approached the date of the crime, actually had 7 of the 9 symptoms and was severely depressed. So that, in addition to that, she had some earlier evidence of what's called a mild mania, and that fits together in what's called bipolar 2. So in other words, it's a type of bipolar illness where there is more frank depression, severe depression, but the manic aspects are not as severe. So my final diagnosis of her was called bipolar 2 with a severe depression on January 24, 2023. And from reading the reports of all the experts that will be testifying, no one failed to diagnose a major mental disease on the day of the crime.
Now, doctor, in the course of that diagnosis, have you considered the concept of postpartum depression and or postpartum psychosis?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors how that...
First of all,
I'm sorry. Can you tell the jurors how that factors into your diagnosis and opinion?
Yes. Ms. Clancy had a history of anxiety and difficulty with each of her children. It was minor with her first child, more significant with her second child, and on the occasion of Callan's birth, things went well for the first 3 months, but then Ms. Clancy became very anxious and depressed, and it took quite a toll on her. And I believe the jury has heard from various treaters, such as Dr. Tufts and Nurse Gelada and others, and her own anguish about how depressed she was, where she actually felt she couldn't function, her brain was damaged, she would never be the same. So she she definitely met the definition of a major depression as well as this bipolar phenomenon. Now, with respect to the postpartum aspect, since Ms. Clancy's symptoms began within 3 months of Callan's birth, that would be considered a postpartum onset. Then, of course, she had considerable difficulty over the next 5 months, and at the time of the crime itself, on January 24, 2023, Ms. Clancy was frankly psychotic. So in that sense, she had a postpartum psychosis. It's actually not frequent to have a postpartum psychosis 8 months after a birth, but it does occasionally occur. And so what I can say is whether it is a classic postpartum psychosis or not, with a postpartum onset and frank psychosis on the day of the killing, I would label that a postpartum psychosis in the sense that it was a postpartum onset and she was clearly psychotic on that day.
Doctor, when a person is psychotic or involved in having a psychosis, in your opinion, are they able to appear normal, quote unquote, communicate with people, drive a car, things of that nature?
Well, let me say there that Ms. Clancy herself did her best to not reveal the extent of her depression. She was frank with members of her own family. Her sister, her mother, her mother-in-law were aware of how anguished and depressed she was. But with more casual friends, she tended not to show the extent of her depression. I'm not suggesting that she was, although psychosis can indeed wax and wane. For example, on the day of her crime, I'm not suggesting that she was frankly psychotic every minute. She was functioning. In fact, she said she was having a better day than other days, and she actually went out and made a snowman with the kids, visited with, took Cora to a doctor for the 5th birthday checkup, and was functioning at a level that was not frankly psychotic until she had a command hallucination while her husband, Patrick, was out doing a couple of chores.
And can you tell us, Doctor, what, in your opinion, what a command hallucination is and how it fits, if you will, in a diagnosis of psychosis?
Yes. If we take, first of all, a hallucination is simply hearing a voice, and the voice can be benign or it can be more malignant. So a voice may just simply say, open the window. About 1/3 of voices are called command hallucinations. That is an instruction to do something. And the majority of those commands are benign. So it might be open a window, get a glass of water. It might be something much more ominous, such as to kill oneself or harm someone else. Those are dangerous command hallucinations. Now, in Ms. Clancy's case, she had not only a command hallucination on the day that she killed her children, she had what is known as a delusion of influence. That is, not only did she hear a command, but she felt that her body was taken over by an external force where she was in a dream state and did not have control of her own body. It was almost like she was a puppet and someone else was pulling the strings. with regard to my opinion is that Ms. Clancy was, due to her mental disease, unable to conform her conduct was to the requirements of the law on the day that she took the lives of her children. And let me give you the basis of that opinion. First of all, she was hearing a voice which was commanding her to engage in the killing behavior. And she did not feel any sense of control. She felt that she had to obey the instructions she was receiving. It was a matter where she was just following the command rather than being able to make any decision to do it or not. And, for example, I asked Ms. Clancy.
No, you can't say what you Doctor. You cannot say what she told you. All right.
Okay. All right. I will not do that. Let me just make sure I'm covering other aspects of this. The second evidence that she was lacking control is the fact that she made a severe suicide attempt, also based on the command hallucination that she heard that day, so that she not only cut her throat and jumped out of a window, she very much wanted to die.
That's the bottom line opinion of Dr. Philip Resnick. Now, if the jury believes that is reasonable, if that's a reasonable explanation for what happened here, Lindsay Clancy wins. Because prosecutors have to disprove that beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay? That's the evidence the defense is putting in from their expert. Prosecutors have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that is not true. That is not a reasonable explanation for what happened here. And that's one of the reasons why in the state of Massachusetts, the sort of flipping of the burden when it comes to this particular issue back onto the shoulders of the prosecution makes it more difficult. It's not the defense trying to convince the jury, to 51%, which is what it's like in most states. It's prosecutors have to disprove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's a challenge. So I want to take a moment to tell you about something really exciting here at Law and Crime. If you haven't heard yet, we have the Law and Crime Plus app, and it's a total game changer. First of all, you get all your favorite shows from both Law and Crime and, of course, here at Court TV, and everything is ad-free, no commercials. But what I'm most excited to share with you is a feature that we call Case Files. This is where we give you a deep dive into the biggest cases in true crime, and you get to see the actual evidence, including body cam video, 911 calls, crime scene photos, and trial footage, and a lot more. Now, you really get to explore the evidence like never before, and that's why we want you all to check this out, and we're giving all our viewers a free 1-month trial. Just head over to lawandcrimeplus.com, enter the promo code VPI, and start your free trial today. So providing to this jury, as the defense has done, the bottom line opinion of their expert about what caused her to do what she did in taking the lives of those 3 children, that's what they need to do. But for a juror to be convinced of that, to understand that, I think you have to really dive into the why of it, right? Well, the defense is saying, why did she kill her children? Well, because of the mental illness. But why within the mental illness did she have to kill her children? And to me, that's a very important question to ask and to answer for the jury. Because again, we get back to the severity of what happened to the three victims here. Why on earth would the mother have to do that? What was going on in her mind? Like literally, what is the why within the mental illness? Let's take a listen as Dr. Philip Resnick addresses that issue.
In my research on women who kill their children, I've divided the motives into 5 categories. And I want to look at how Ms. Clancy to those motives.
So tell us the 5 categories.
Yeah, the 5 categories are first, altruistic filicide.
What does that mean? What does that mean, altruistic filicide?
Altruistic filicide occurs when a murder is committed out of love rather than hostility. It is an effort on a mother's part to do what is best for the child. They may believe that the child is, they may have a delusional belief the child is about to be tortured in their delusional mind, and they take their life in doing what they believe is in the best interest of the children based on their delusional idea. Altruistic filicide also occurs when a mother may plan to take her own life, and in her psychotic thinking and severe depression, it is distorted, and she may believe that the child will be worse off if she remains alive. So, for example, in Ms. Clancy's case, she believed that, as the jury has already heard, she was obsessional about caring for her children. She consulted with others at work to try and do exactly what was right for her children, and she believed that if Ms. Clancy took her own life, her children would be in terrible shape, and in her mind, she believed that she would be doing her children a favor by having them go to heaven with her rather than remain on earth without her doing the mothering. Her mind was very distorted like that.
Okay. So if you could just tell us the other titles of the other 4 types that you were referred to. Just tell it without getting into detail if they don't apply to Ms. Clancy.
All right. The second category does apply to Ms. Clancy, and that is called acutely psychotic filicide.
Okay.
And this occurs when someone is frankly psychotic. They may have delusions or hallucinations. They're out of touch with reality, and rather than having any rational motive, they're simply acting on their psychotic beliefs. So those 2 both apply to Ms. Clancy. The other 3...
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, that's right. Just give us the other 3, the captions of them.
The other 3 which do not apply, one is called child maltreatment, in which a parent may shake the child to death or throw a child against a wall in an abusive manner. The next category is unwanted child, where someone, just for their convenience, the child is a burden, and they kill the child for that motive. And the final motive is spouse revenge filicide. That is, someone hates their spouse so much that they're willing to sacrifice the child as a way to punish the spouse. And the 3 latter categories clearly do not apply to Ms. Clancy. She loved her husband, respected her husband, had a good marriage. She never spanked or ever abused her child, and all of her children were wanted. In fact, she planned to have a fourth child. So those three categories clearly do not apply. If I can explain how the two categories did apply, I've already mentioned that Ms. Clancy believed that a distorted belief that her children would just be miserable, and she could not imagine them continuing to exist and have a decent life without her being there as a mother. And so in that sense, she did what she believed was morally right, even though she understood that ordinarily killing a child is against the law. She believed that she was doing what was right for her children with her distorted, psychotic thinking about the children's need for her. And then with respect to the second category of acutely psychotic, Ms. Clancy was under the influence of a command hallucination and idea of influence, so that at that time, rather than the ability to make a rational decision, she was so in the grip of her psychotic command hallucination and idea of influence that she lacked the capacity to conform her conduct to the requirements of the law.
Okay. And, Doctor, pretty much finally, there's been some questions or allegations that Ms. Clancy did not provide information to her health care providers about her adverse effects of medication that she had been prescribed. Do you agree with that from your review of the medical records, or did she, in fact, tell her health care providers how she felt as a result of what she perceived to be the medications that were prescribed?
It's my opinion of reasonable medical certainty that Ms. Clancy was actually a more sophisticated patient than most, and she was forthcoming in conveying her symptoms. The one area in which she was not fully revealing was the area of when she had an impulse to harm her children, and that was because she had a rational belief that her children may be taken away from her by a social service agency. She had an irrational belief that if she even entered a medical hospital, that her should be taken away. So that is the one area in which she was not fully forthcoming.
Dr. Philip Resnick's been doing this a long time. And his credibility, I think, comes from the years of doing this type of work and studying this type of work. And yes, he does testify on both sides. He doesn't just testify for criminal defendants. There is a battle that takes place inside of a courtroom, and it's going to take place and has taken place inside this courtroom. And it's a really interesting one. It's when you have an experienced expert versus a skilled prosecutor. Prosecutors, I was one. We are very skeptical of defense cases. We're very skeptical of defense experts. So we want to be able to undermine their credibility because we don't believe what they're saying, and we want to make sure that the jury doesn't believe what they're saying. So this is an interesting battle, a very interesting battle here between assistant district attorney and this seasoned, experienced expert. Let's watch it go down.
You've also given some points to other practitioners. If you, quote, if you suspect a person of malingered auditory hallucination, ask what he or she does to make the voices go away or diminish in intensity, correct?
Yes.
Because typically someone who hears a voice telling them to do something horrible like kill their child will try to resist that voice initially, correct?
That there's variability. Some do and some don't.
And in fact, the case you mentioned earlier, Andrea Yates, Miss Yates, in fact, committed herself to a hospital 5 times and tried to kill herself twice, all while trying to not kill her children, correct?
Yes.
She had heard voices for months and telling her to kill her children, and to resist those voices, she actually tried to kill herself, correct?
Until she could no longer resist the voices, yes.
Right. But she tried.
Right, as did Ms. Clancy.
Well, according to the records and reports that we have that are in evidence, Ms. Clancy heard the voice and immediately acted, correct? According to those records? Is that correct?
Well, Ms. Clancy had impulses to harm her children, which she did resist until the command hallucination when she was overwhelmed, yes.
But according to the records and the testimony that we've had, she had an impulse in December one time to harm her children, correct?
I believe it was on 2 occasions that she mentioned it to her husband.
And then never again after that until her kids were killed, correct?
There were only 2 occasions she mentioned it, but she referred to having these horrible impulses. So that suggests to me she was dealing with it on an ongoing basis, although she mentioned it only twice to her husband.
But she never said she had thoughts to kill her children. She said she had thoughts to harm her children, correct?
Yes, but actually, I think it's clear that to harm her children was to kill her children.
Well, in the records where you say that she was so clear in presenting her symptoms to her doctors, she repeatedly was asked if she had any homicidal ideation, and she repeatedly said no, correct?
That's right, and she didn't in the initial parts of her treatment, but by late December and January is when she did have those impulses.
But what
and she
told
did not
her
acknowledge them.
But what she told
She
her
did not acknowledge
doctors,
them to her doctors.
what she told her doctors in December is that she had no homicidal ideation. She only reported suicidal ideation, correct?
Yes, and as noted, that's very common because people fear their children will be taken away.
So it's better to kill them than to have them taken away.
Yeah.
Sustained.
You know, it's not better to kill them than have them taken away.
That question is stricken, that answer is stricken. Okay.
You also state in another article identifying malingering with Dr. Philip Resnick, you point out that the rapid resolution of symptoms with medication can be a red flag, as genuine psychotic symptoms usually take longer to subside, correct?
That's correct.
Were you aware from the Tewksbury records that on page 1136 it says Ms. Clancy has been clinically stable since her admission. There have been no events of affective, cognitive, or behavioral instability since her admission, and that Ms. Clancy has not evidenced any challenges in accepting and conforming to the rules and standards. Did you review that note?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay. Were you also aware on page 1168 that it says Ms. Clancy denies that she has ever experienced hallucinatory content prior to or since that event, referring to when she killed her children, correct?
Yes.
And you're aware on page 1170, it states Ms. Clancy presents with intact reality testing and no observable symptoms of psychosis. She is actively engaged in treatment. She is able to identify possible hopes for her future, including serving as an activist for postpartum psychosis awareness and participating in a wheelchair marathon. Were you aware of that?
Yes.
You mentioned that Ms. Clancy was able to hide her symptoms of depression from her friends, that she was open with some people, but she was able to hide those symptoms from friends and other people she interacted with, correct?
Yes, hide the depths of her depression.
And so she was able to control and conform her behavior to situations in which she did not want to show people how she was feeling, correct?
Sure, very common.
Now, you wrote in your report on page 24 that Ms. Clancy had paranoid beliefs that her children would be taken away from her if anyone knew what she was going through, correct?
Yes.
But that's actually a rational belief, is it not, that if someone knows you want to harm your children, they might be taken away?
It can be rational, but it was more, it approached irrational in her case rather than rational.
These are some good questions by the prosecutor, by the way. I'm wondering, though, how hard they're going to play that theme of Lindsay Clancy didn't try hard enough to resist the impulses. She didn't try hard enough to resist the voice that was telling her to kill her children. I don't know what they're going to say during their closing argument, but that's an interesting issue, and I think a potentially dangerous argument to make. So when we first started covering this trial, I knew Patrick Clancy was going to be an important and a big part of the case. But from my perspective, I thought the big part and role that he would play would be as the ex-husband, the father of the three victims who forgave his wife, who did not want her criminally prosecuted. And would that impact this jury? Would the jury get that message from him? Would they get permission from Patrick Clancy to find Lindsay not criminally responsible for killing their children? That's what I thought the big issue would be. Turns out it was something else. And I don't know if it's manifesting itself inside the jury box, but clearly for people who've been following and watching this case and commenting on it on social media, Patrick Clancy was looked at as a potential suspect in all of this. Why did that happen? One reason may be his demeanor, the way he testified. Maybe people didn't like him. Maybe it's because he moved on and got remarried and did so before people thought he should. I'm not sure, but I want to take another look at his testimony because he was the first witness, and not by accident. It was because of how important of a witness he was. So let's take another listen to the testimony of Patrick Clancy and try to figure out why everyone commenting online, all these people believe that he is somehow involved or responsible for what happened to his children.
So when you come down those stairs that night, which direction did you go?
I immediately went left.
And when you went left, what did you see?
I saw Cora.
And how did she look?
She had a band around her neck.
And was that an exercise band?
Yeah.
And do you recall whether she was, what position she was in, whether face up or face down?
She's face down.
And when you saw her in that condition, what did you do?
I immediately ran over and tried to take the band off.
Were you able to get the band off?
Yeah.
And do you recall how you got the band off?
I think I untied it.
And when you say untied it, was it in a knot that you had to, put everything down and unknot it, or how was it tied?
I'm not sure I fully remember.
Do you recall describing it previously as when you initially tie your shoes but then don't do the bow?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And was she responsive?
No.
And what did you see or do next?
I saw Callan.
And where was he?
He was next to her.
And how did he appear?
He had a band around his neck.
Sorry?
He had a band around his neck.
And did you remove that as well?
Yeah.
And do you recall what position he was in?
Same as Cora.
And looking at the model here, if you could just tell us, where was Cora?
The left of the couch.
So would that be this area here that I'm pointing to, in between the bureau and the couch?
Yeah.
And where was Callan?
To her left.
So would that be more over here towards the chair and the bureau?
Yeah.
After you removed the band from Callan's neck, what did you do next?
I tried to find Dawson.
And where did you go?
I looked in the bathroom and on the other side of the couch, and then I went to the other side of the basement, and he was in my office.
And when you saw Dawson, what condition was he in?
I knew he was gone.
And did he also have a band around his neck?
Yeah.
And did you remove that band?
Yeah.
And looking at the office here, where was he located within the office?
Just to the left of the door when you went in.
Just in this area here, right inside the door?
Yeah.
Now, after finding Dawson and taking off the band, what happened next?
I think I was back and forth. I think I went to try to help Cora.
Okay. Did you try to give her CPR?
Yeah.
At some point in time, do the first responders make their way down to the basement?
Yeah.
And do they take over care of the children?
Yeah.
Where do you go?
They sent me upstairs.
Okay. Cora, Dawson, and Callan removed from the home and taken to a hospital.
Yeah.
Was that Beth Israel Deaconess in Plymouth?
Yeah.
Did you also go to that location?
Yeah.
And at the hospital, were you able to see your children?
Yeah.
And was Callan then transported to Children's Hospital?
Yeah.
Did anyone ever tell you not to leave your kids alone with Lindsay?
No.
In January of 2023, did Lindsay ever tell you that she wanted to harm your children?
No.
Did she ever tell you she was going to kill your children?
No.
Did you receive, a few days after this happened, did you receive a phone call from the defendant while she was at Brigham and Women's Hospital?
I think it was like a week or so after, yeah.
And what did the defendant say at that time about what had happened with the children?
She didn't talk about our kids. She talked about what she went through.
And what did she say about what she went through?
She said she heard a man's voice telling her that if she didn't do it now, she would lose her chance or something like that.
And did she also tell you that she had had a moment of psychosis?
I don't recall.
Did she mention the children at all during that call?
I don't think so. I mean, not directly.
Had she ever mentioned psychosis to you before?
No, I didn't know what psychosis was until after this happened.
Did she ever tell you she was hearing a man's voice before?
No.
So obviously the end of that testimony important for prosecutors because they're alleging that she's making this up after the fact. The voice is in her head. They'll use that. From my perspective, what I just saw from Patrick Clancy, I was focusing on this controlled, labored breathing he was going through. I could tell he was impacted by all of this, reliving that moment. I don't see a killer. I see a man whose life was blown up. That's just my opinion. Like every juror will have their opinion. Folks at home have their opinions. But that's what I saw. I mean, this, to me, this sort of puts the exclamation point at the end of this case in the incredible tragedy and sadness and loss that took place that day that he has to live with. We'll see what the jury does. This case is coming to a conclusion, and obviously we'll keep covering it. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to hug the kids.